December 26, 1996. A mother waking up the day after Christmas, allegedly to find the ransom note left behind in her Boulder, Colorado home. Her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét Ramsey, gone. At least, that's how the story starts. But the truth, it's much darker, much stranger, and absolutely messier than any kidnapping you've ever heard. Because hours later, JonBenét wasn't found missing at all. She was found dead in her house in the basement. Welcome back to Southern Fried Felonies. I'm Kate. Today we're doing the case of JonBenét Ramsey, the one that shaped true crime obsession in America, the one that made us all side-eye ransom notes, pageant moms, and Santa Clauses who get a little too friendly. She was a child beauty queen. The ransom note was unreal. Then you had the police that botched the investigation. Then you had DNA debates. So why, almost 30 years later, is it still unsolved? This one has everything. A suspicious family, that stupid ransom note, a pineapple that may or may not hold the answer to everything. And police work so sloppy, you'd think that they were trying to set up a sitcom pilot called CSI Amateur Hour. So let's set the stage. Christmas Day, 1996, the Ramseys, John, Patsy, 9-year-old Burke, and 6-year-old JonBenét, attend a holiday party at the White family home. Big, wealthy Boulder social circle. Champagne, laughters, the works. They get home sometime around 9:30 p.m. The official story? JonBenét goes straight to bed, no drama. Except, details later suggest maybe not. There's that pineapple we'll come back to, and a bowl in the kitchen. But for now, the family says JonBenét was carried to bed, sound asleep. Now, the morning of December 26th, just before 6 a.m., Patsy Ramsey comes down and finds a 2.5-page ransom note on the back staircase. It claims JonBenét has been kidnapped. The kidnapper demands $118,000, which weirdly is almost the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus. Patsy screams, runs upstairs, checks JonBenét's room, and finds her empty bed. Then she calls 911 at 5:52 a.m. That call? It's one of the most dissected pieces of audio in true crime history. She tells dispatchers that her daughter's been kidnapped and that there's a ransom note. She sounds frantic, but here's the kicker. At the end of the call, as Patsy hangs up, some audio experts claim that you can hear voices in the background. Allegedly John's voice, allegedly Burke's voice. Which is weird because Patsy swore Burke was asleep the entire time, and the police were told that Burke didn't wake up until much later. Let's talk about the ransom note, because honestly it deserves its own Netflix miniseries. The thing is 2.5 pages long. That's unheard of. FBI profilers said it was the longest ransom note they'd ever seen. And guess what? It wasn't even brought into the house by intruders. Nope. It was written inside, using the Ramseys' own pen and paper. It's like if burglars broke in, grabbed a snack, and then used your Wi-Fi to Google how to be a convincing kidnapper. The note says things like we were a small foreign faction. Who even says foreign faction? That's straight out of a bad movie. It also quotes movie lines, like "Don't try to grow a brain, John," is lifted almost verbatim from Speed. And Victory SBTC at the end, nobody has ever figured out what that stands for. Handwriting analysis later compared Patsy's writing to the note. Officially, she wasn't confirmed as the author, but it also wasn't ruled out. The similarities were uncomfortably close. Bottom line, the experts think the ransom note was staged, not a real kidnapper, not a real demand, just theater. I'm going to tell you, I have done research on this note, and I put the ransom note up against Patsy's sampled writing, and it's awful close. I mean, it's shocking. Here's where it gets haunting. For hours, police and family friends were inside the house, searching, comforting, contaminating the scene. And get this, the police didn't even secure the perimeter. They let friends clean dishes, they let people walk around freely. One officer literally sat in the kitchen and wrote her police report while drinking from the Ramsey's coffee pot. Fast forward to about 1 p.m. An officer tells John Ramsey to do a top-to-bottom search of the house. John goes straight to the basement. Within minutes, he finds JonBenét's body in a small room. She's covered in a white blanket. There's duct tape on her mouth, a nylon cord around her neck, and her hands are tied above her head. A homemade garrote, basically a strangulation device, is wrapped around her neck. Instead of leaving the body there for the crime scene investigators, John scoops her up and carries her upstairs, which I get, it's his daughter, but it also destroyed crucial evidence. If this were a cop show, that's the moment you'd scream at the TV like, "Sir, put her down! Step away from the evidence." Okay, now let's get forensic, because this is where things turn from sad to absolutely baffling. The autopsy showed JonBenét had two major injuries. First, a skull fracture about 8.5 inches long, massive blunt force trauma, but oddly, not much bleeding under the scalp, which suggests she may have been knocked out quickly. Second, ligature strangulation. The nylon cord around her neck left deep furrows. The coroner determined strangulation was the official cause of death. Now here's where it gets complicated. The coroner also noted signs of possible sexual assault, vaginal irritation, but no definitive injuries of prolonged abuse. A broken piece of paintbrush from Patsy's art supplies was used to tighten the garrote. There was also a stun gun theory. Some experts say two small marks on her body look like stun gun burns. Others say nope, it's just post-mortem artifact. To me, it did look like a stun gun mark, but I'm not an expert, and I've never used one, but it did kind of look like that. And then there's the pineapple. JonBenét's stomach contained fresh pineapple, but her parents swore they didn't feed her anything after the party. On the kitchen counter, a bowl of pineapple with a spoon. Burke's fingerprints were on that bowl. So, was JonBenét awake that night, having a snack? Did Burke lash out, or did the intruder feed her? That pineapple has been debated for decades. I have to admit, I'm kind of stuck on it too. Alright, let's talk DNA. Investigators found a partial male DNA profile in JonBenét's underwear, plus on her long johns, but it was a mixture, degraded, and possibly from manufacturing contamination. In fact, one Colorado lab admitted their underwear samples sometimes had stray DNA from the factory. Fibers from Patsy's clothing were found on the duct tape in the basement. There was also a single unidentified boot print near the body and a broken window in the basement. John admitted he'd broken in months earlier when he locked himself out of the house, which means maybe it was a point of entry, or maybe it's just another red herring. In short, the forensic evidence is a nightmare. DNA doesn't fully match anyone, and the scene was contaminated. Every clue point in 3 different directions. Okay, now let's run down through the main theories. Suspects. Burke theory. Burke, 9-year-old, jealous or angry, hits JonBenét with something. Flashlight, toy, whatever, causing the head injury. Parents find her, panic, stage a kidnapping. Then they could explain the pineapple, the head wound, and the cover-up vibe. But skeptics say, would parents really stage strangulation and sexual assault to cover up an accident? Patsy theory. Handwriting similarities to ransom note, her fibers everywhere, possible pageant mom stress, but what was her motive? Then there's John. He found the body, carried it upstairs, suspicious suitcase near the basement window, but far less direct evidence points to him. The intruder theory. Lou Smith was an investigator who swore an intruder did it. He points to unidentified DNA, the boot print, broken window, and stun gun marks. Bill McReynolds, the Santa friend, creepy letters but no real evidence was also a theory. Then there was Gary Oliva, local sex offender, admitted fantasies about JonBenét, but DNA ruled him out. And then Michael Helgoth died of suicide right after the press conference, but again, DNA didn't match. Every suspect list comes to the same problem. Nothing fits cleanly. If you think the family did it, the intruder evidence nags at you. If you think the intruder did it, the ransom note looks ridiculous. From day one, the case blew up in the press. Child beauty queen, wealthy parents, mysterious note. The tabloids had a field day. The Ramseys lawyered up immediately, went on CNN to plead their innocence, but refused direct police interviews for months. That made them look guilty to the public. There were leaks, press conferences, finger pointing between the Boulder PD and the district attorney. It was chaos. In 2008, DA Mary Lacy formally exonerated the Ramseys, saying the DNA cleared them, but tons of experts said the DNA isn't reliable enough to clear anyone. In 2016, CBS aired the case of JonBenét Ramsey, basically accusing Burke. He sued them and won a settlement. Today, as of 2025, the case is still unsolved. Boulder PD claims they're open to new DNA testing methods, but so far, nothing concrete. So where does that leave us? Almost 30 years later, and we're still stuck. What we know. A 6-year-old girl was killed in her own home. The ransom note was staged. The evidence was contaminated. And the truth is tangled in family secrets, bad police work, and the perfect storm of media frenzy. Some people are Team Burke. Some are Team Intruder. Most agree on one thing. We'll probably never get the smoking gun. Our final thought, don't let Santa into your house unless he's wearing a red suit. And if you're going to stage a ransom note, at least don't make it a dissertation. This has been Southern Fried Felonies. Thanks for listening. Hug your kids, lock your doors, and maybe skip the pineapple snack.